It's Talk Erie on the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And I want to welcome back my friend, David Gonzalez. He's the Executive Director of St. Martin Center here in Erie, doing the Lord's work now. How many years has the organization been in existence, Dave?
Oh, over 60 for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've not been there that long. I'm just to clarify.
To clarify. And again, an arm of Catholic Charities, right?
It's associated. Yes, it's affiliated with the Diocese of Erie. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a Catholic Charities Agency. Yes.
Yes. All right. Let's remind folks the mission of St. Martin Center.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because we'll be highlighting a revised vision here, mission shortly, but really ultimately boils down to us providing both short-term and long-term assistance to help families succeed right here in our community.
When you say assistance to succeed, what kind of what lanes are you swimming in? You know?
Yeah. Well, so we kind of in a unique way interface, provide programming in a way that it's really not, others don't do around here, so that we have early learning. That is, we help kids get ready for regular school, that's preschool. We have basic needs, things like our food pantry, where we actually have one of the biggest food pantries in the area. And we do sort of some immediate assistance for, rent and mortgage. But then we also do what's called long-term assistance, and that's really where we can help folks with financial literacy, with buying a home, repairing their credit, and so similar to Jesus's work, we work with folks as they come in, but it is our goal to help them move forward and be in a better place, if you will, when they're not with us anymore.
When you talk about the kinds of assistance things, how do you get to a scenario where it's not just always plugging holes in the dike, but maybe actually rebuilding and moving forward? I think you're aware of like that whole curriculum, Bridges Out of Poverty, and all that, where it's like, that's a major lift to leave poverty right into kind of a self-sustaining thing. But that seems to be what we've as a community have been after. With every program that you can think of, it's all about how do we have more families that are sustained, right?
Yes. And so I would say that for us, I referenced earlier that we're going to be sort of, teasing that we're going to be revealing a new strategic direction here shortly. But it probably started back in 2022 when I had a conversation with some of our members of our board, and I said, we need to pivot a bit, and we've done a number of things over the years, but we need to be more focused in what I'd say impactful work. And so what that looks like is serving less individuals, but in a deeper way, so that they can be in a better, it is not enough to provide rent assistance for a couple months and say goodbye. It is better to provide rent assistance while providing some education about how to manage your money and frankly, what it takes to be a responsible tenant and how to communicate with your landlord. That's a better approach. And it's we want to provide early learning in a way that clearly prepares kids for kindergarten. And we want ideally to help as best as we can prepare some folks for home ownership. It's not for everybody.
Right.
Not everybody's at that phase of their lives, but we as a community, all of us agree that we need more homeowners, right? And so, and that's not easy or frankly common sense for everybody to just become a homeowner. And so we want to do that specific work in a better way, in a different way, so that folks can be better prepared, so that they don't have to depend on services like ours for the entire of their life. That's really never the intent. Was to provide some assistance. I'm saying let's go a little bit further, provide the help today and help to the extent that we can get you in better shape for tomorrow.
Sometimes you're in an emergency. The car breaks down and you don't use the money to get the car so I can go to work. So then now I'm short on the rent. I mean, like,
Well, and that is
it's a Jenga game or puzzle to.
Yeah, and the way I call that is I say life happens. And so, when you often talk to others about the value, the meaning of nonprofit work, sometimes folks think, oh, well, you're serving the same people all the time. But the reality is, and actually I learned this through reviewing the client stories of people we serve at the Martin Center, many people come to us never needing an agency, frankly, never knowing how to go about it, but they lost their job. Somebody in their family got sick, somebody died, maybe a divorce happened, a sickness. All of a sudden, they need help for things that they never needed to before. And so we are there for them as well. So I like to say, yes, we can help, and we do for other folks, but we're also here for those that just never experienced this before. And honestly, it can happen to any of us at any time. How many of us, hopefully not everybody, but how many of us are one or two paychecks away from real trouble?
Wow. All right, so let's break the part of your mission down a bit, and let's talk about housing, because that seems to be a significant part of what you do. There, like you said, there's like short-term emergency gap filling. Is that what you would call it, or?
Well, so housing is an interesting thing that I would say honestly requires a really long conversation from us, Joel, but I'm always happy to tell you our thoughts on it from our perspective.
Yeah.
We at St. Martin Center, as I shared, have been around over 60 years. And for most of that time, probably close to 30 years now, the housing work was mostly sort of emergency based, right? Rent assistance to make sure you don't lose your apartment, or mortgage assistance to make sure you didn't, get foreclosed on. But we, again, are trying to do more. We're doing those things also still, but we're trying to do more along the lines of helping folks get into home. But the issue with me and housing, not with me, but the issue that I want to sort of make clear with housing in our region is many of us, frankly, still continue to feel that the issue is being looked at. It's not being looked at the whole picture, right? There's a clear and a good focus in our community to help the homeless not be homeless, right? What I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, and it's well documented, it's not, just me saying it, is there's definitely a lot of investment and ideas about getting individuals from the street into some sort of housing unit, whatever. What I'm not hearing is how are we going to prepare those individuals to stay in those, housing. And I think that is an area that needs additional, let's just say, development and dialogue in our community.
Is there there is the absolute chronic homeless person, and they have a count. They know, I think it's like 150, 200 people.
Count, the single point in time.
Single point in time. But then there's that one step up where, like you say, you're one paycheck away, or, one rent increase away from losing what, let's just face it, a lot of us would never step into some of these apartments. They I don't know how they pass inspection, but they somehow do, and they're just horrific conditions, right?
Yeah, and I think part of what I'm saying is that the area's housing challenges, which of course are very much tied to our poverty issues in our community, but the housing challenges in this community are not unilateral. They're not really, it's not as simple as getting somebody into an apartment, right? Yes, folks need support services, particularly if they have situations where there's health, drug and alcohol or mental health conditions. But nobody, or at least very little, I hear about how to help folks with credit, how to help people. It's you don't just get into an apartment and overnight learn what it is to cook for yourself, to do the responsible thing. There's not a lot of talk about that in our community, and that's of concern to me, because what happens is, whether it's a home or an apartment, when folks go in and for whatever reason are not fully prepared to take on that responsibility, or the system, let's say, is not super helpful, guess what? People lose apartments or lose homes, and then how much have we really accomplished as
Yeah.
a community?
Wow.
And so,
So is this something that you guys are thinking about at St. Martin?
well,
or-
yeah, I mean, we provide the financial literacy. You know, we are moving also, and so we've provided rent assistance for a long time, but we actually now have a HUD certified rental counselor, and so we're little by little moving in that direction because we really feel that that gap, just as children need the proper education to be succeed in school. Listen, homeowners and people living in apartments need some information and support to be able to be successful in that. I don't know about you, but I certainly don't hear much talk about that in the region.
Yeah, well, I'm hearing fits and starts. You know, I'm hearing a little bit from from Erie Bank. I'm hearing a little bit from the Erie's Black Wall Street. Again, they have a literacy thing. I mean, it seems to be rising, but we're coming from such a huge deficit. Again, like to your point, not everybody needs to be a homeowner, but we do have some horrific home ownership percentages out there. I mean, again, the people of African American home ownership is like 4%. I mean,
Well,
that is just
Latino home ownership is lower than that.
That I mean, doesn't that alarm you as a?
Well, absolutely.
as a-
Now, we provide assistance at St. Martin Center regardless of what your ethnicity
Right,
is. But yeah, I mean, it's well documented in Erie that communities of color have very low numbers of home ownership. For that matter, low numbers in executive positions, et cetera, et cetera. That's another long conversation for another day.
I mean, when you think about it, if you had the credit score for that same $850 a month that you're paying in rent, you could buy a nice $140,000 house.
Right. The challenge is the down payment to get started. And so you're right. Yeah. Many of us that own a home pay less in our monthly mortgage than the average rent that you mentioned, which I believe is eight or $850 or so for this area. Very high, particularly when you consider the size of apartments that people are living in.
Right.
But it's the down payment that's really and the credit that score that are the really probably two of the biggest limitations in folks getting started. So we provide the education to help you learn the tools, improve your credit, and then we have some funds to use towards closing costs, as well as there are other programs out there.
I mean, if the house can make FHA, it's almost 100%.
Well,
finance,
these
isn't it?
things sort of go ebb and flow, right? They don't, and of course interest rates is another
They're
big
a big
factor.
deal,
So
yeah.
it's not a simple thing,
Right.
But it's in our opinion, particularly for those of us that work with people in need on a regular basis,
Yeah.
these are things that are worth pursuing and talking about and doing more of. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us could benefit if there was more property owners in the city and the county overall. I think certainly the rest of us that live in the city would love that as well. But as a region, I think collectively we just haven't done a lot of that. There's a lot of talk about housing the homeless. Not a lot in terms of empowering folks and frankly, even helping folks live in the community. I think that's important. Yeah. I think it's more cost effective for Johnny to live in the community than for us to keep having bigger buildings to house individuals.
We're talking to David Gonzalez. We're going to take our first break. 4:20 now. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. David Gonzalez, Executive Director for St. Martin's Center, is with us here. And David, off air, we were talking about childcare. Again, it's one of those big pillars that Erie is struggling with. I mean, we mentioned homelessness, and housing in general. Childcare is a big deal. I mean, we've had formal studies and things like that. And even Governor Shapiro came out and said, I'm going to provide $50 million across the state to try to, incentivize people to get into the childcare work. Tell us about the childcare that you do. And you just mentioned that you're a 4-star organization there, which is the highest level. Yeah.
Yeah. Our early learning center has been star 4 for many years. We currently have 161 or so children.
Are you at capacity?
No, we're not at capacity.
Okay.
Remember, capacity for early learning centers, or for that matter, schools, is also dependent upon staffing. It's very much tied to staffing. So, but yeah, we have a Star 4, which is the highest rating you can get in the Keystone Star system for the state. We also have 2 pre-K counts classrooms, which has also been one of the subjects of increases by Governor Shapiro, and that's a free program for families specifically. We're not a Head Start location, but we basically start with the earliest that kids can come is 6 weeks of age.
Oh, my.
And then, so primarily, I'd say out of our 12 classrooms, most of them are pre-K, and then we do have a couple of classrooms what we consider school-aged, and that's when the kids come before and after school till maybe 12 years old, right? So, but very much focuses preschool, and it's early learning, developmental skills, social. We get evaluated by the STARS, the Department of Human Services, and of course pre-K counts, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that's another topic, to your point, that doesn't get a lot of press, although there have been increases.
Is there any out of pocket on behalf of the families?
Yes. So it's a copay, and I can't tell you what that is because it depends on the family. And so most of our families, not all, 65 or so percent, are in what's called the ELRC, Early Learning Resource. They get Early Learning Resource funding. Childcare Works funding through ELRC, which it's for working parents. So if the parents are working, household income is still not high enough, they get subsidized tuition. So the state and it's a combination of state and federal covers most of the tuition, but the parents have a copay.
Okay.
All right. The pre-K count, as I shared earlier, those 2 classrooms are completely free to the children. That's like a grant, right? Funded program. But yeah, there's a copay, but it is for working parents. And so when we talk early learning, it's obvious to always say the educational angle. But for me, any early learning program is economic development, because in order to be eligible to participate, parents have to be working. And so the kids, they receive funding, the kids come get an education, get ready, kindergarten readiness. But the parents are able to go to work, and they have to go to work to be eligible. So, and we need parents to be able to go to work, right, for the economy and for whatnot.
Sure.
So, we often don't talk about the economic development side of things, but it very much is.
When we talk, I mean, again, I'm trying to thread the needle with all the programs. Somebody comes to you and says, I'm having a hard time paying my rent. Is one of the questions, well, are you working? How are you getting hours, or what have you? Because you're not eligible for the child care if you're not working. I mean, and we have an issue with workforce participation, don't we?
Well, there's lots of issues, Joel, right? But to your point,
that's
many
the understatement of the year.
Many, if not most, of those issues are connected, right?
Yeah.
And so, Johnny needs rent or help assistance. So that is when we have a really, if you will, a customized conversation about what your situation is, right? Are you working? Are you not managing it well for whatever reason? Let's help you with that. Are you not making enough money? Do we need to change other circumstances? Or do we need to connect you with services that will help? It's, this is where the individual client-centered approach can help us get to the issues. The ultimate goal is not to provide a lifetime of support, but rather assistance, whether it's really short term or perhaps extended, but the ultimate goal is to provide you with the resources or the help or the know-how to help you and your family be in a better place moving forward. So
how's Erie do with coordination? Again, you as an agency can only do so much.
Right.
We have GCAC, we have this one, we have that one. I mean, we're a we have a a wealth of social services in this town. How much coordination happens? Can we do better at that, Dave?
So the short answer to your question, how are we doing with cooperation, is it depends who you ask. And you know me, I will always be honest with you, Joel. So I think I will say that all of us recognize the value of cooperation and collaboration. What we all don't agree on, admittedly, is defining what that looks like, who gets the credit, for how long, and who gets paid. And those are, I think, some of the general ingredients that sometimes, that can make all the difference,
Right.
between success of collaboration and or not. And so, yes, I think we all need to work closer together. But I mean all of us. That's nonprofits. That's the private sector. That's the elected officials. When we deal with the poverty problem of our community, it is not a nonprofit problem. It's a community problem, and everybody really can play a role to help us get better, right? Often the nonprofits are told, well, like, you didn't fix this, right?
Right, yeah, which is, hey, we gave you money on your annual fund. Now fix this thing.
Right.
And
So-
that's a heavy lift. We've got David Gonzalez with us. We've got news next here. David is from St. Martin Center. We're going to learn more about their great work there in just a bit. Here at the beginning of the year, we're getting a lay of the land, if you will, on where different sectors are how they're doing. And David Gonzalez, Executive Director of the St. Martin Center, kind enough to join us here on this first live show on a Thursday in 2026, and talking about the work with poverty. And David, we talked about we talked about housing, we talked about early learning. What are some of the programs and ideas that are coming up with your organization, that are kind of maybe a new take on 2026?
Yeah, so I'm excited. We have a new strategic plan, and we're very close to sort of kind of releasing the highlights. But I will tell you that. So yeah, we have some new things, and more like new and improved, if you will. Not as in brand new. We never did this before, but let's do things differently. More intentional and deliberate, so as to be more impactful, right? And so, for example, we're still going to do early learning. We're still doing housing and basic needs, but we've said no, and we're saying no to some programs that perhaps are not functioning as well, right? We've modified our food pantry hours. We're trying to do more along the lines of pre-purchase, not just mortgage assistance. What
does that sound like? What's pre-purchase?
Well, so mortgage assistance is, I already own a home, I'm behind, can you help me? We will meet with you. Our HUD certified counselors will do counseling, ascertain what the real issue here is, whether the payment is too high, whether you have too much, whatever the issue is, they help you, and we can in fact at times tap into assistance to help cover a little bit, not your entire mortgage, but part of it. Pre-purchase is, hey, we're teaching you the whole process about how to buy a home, how to plan for that, and how to help secure a good interest rate, how to work on your closing costs. We can help with that as well. We still have some funds in that area. We can't cover obviously your whole house. So buying a home, keeping a home, two different animals, related but not necessarily the same. And so we now have 4 HUD certified staff, and more on the way, really unique for this area. In early learning, we have new leadership there. We are doing some things differently, again, with the focus of doing things that are going to lead us to more impact, right? We want to be able to, what I tell my staff is, we're not in the business of providing lifetime support for lifetime conditions. Sometimes people do have medical lifetime conditions, and this is not that, right? And so we want to provide compassionate, client-centered, and when possible, our Christian values absolutely guide our work. But it's always meant to be temporary of some sort, right? And ideally, if we do a better job of providing that work now, the families are going to be, let's just say, hopefully more independent down the road. And then that allows us to help other people.
When we talk about early learning, isn't the goal there to be kindergarten ready? I mean, you hear that buzzword.
That is the goal, and so it's a place where we're proud of how we do our work.
How much do you have to teach the families to help their children be kindergarten ready?
Well, and so we have we absolutely have frequent communication with families, and we, at this point per se, don't have, say, specific programming for parents, but there's ongoing communication about not just the day-to-day of the children, but are they meeting their developmental milestones and those kinds of things. Okay. And then, of course, there's assessments, et cetera, et cetera. When if there are challenges to the household, that's when the rest of St. Martin Center can step in and say, hey, okay, you need to access our food pantry. Do we need to help you with rent for a little while? But, we're proud of the work we do at our early learning center. We actually have, as they say, we're looking for a few good people to help join the team.
What are some of the qualifications?
Well, so the qualifications really are determined by the Department of Education and Health and Human Services, but definitely prior experience in the area of early learning is generally required for us. If that comes in the way of a specialized degree like early childhood education, that's generally super easy to kind of make things work. Or if folks don't have that, then we have to kind of follow different protocols to see whether they would be allowed or permitted to work, to do the work.
Are we seeing any programming? Because this doesn't need to be a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. It could be just a certificate, right?
Well, you can have a certificate, but folks with higher degrees clearly get paid more.
Right. I'm just thinking that is this something that they might be already working on at the community college or could work on? Because it seems like there's a huge need.
Yeah, so it's an interesting point. I think there is some work to be done with some universities on connecting folks with that training. And sort of on the back end side of things. But I will say that what's also true is that on the front end, there are less people going to our local universities for early childhood education. I know that for a fact. And so which then when you sort of look at the big picture, that's one of the things that complicates. If we in essence have less folks that are eligible to do this work, because we need to have folks that have training, absolutely clearances and all those kinds of things. And of course, we want you to be able to trust your child to us, to folks that are qualified and whatnot. And so it is something that everybody's looking for, always the right candidate. We like to think it's working for our learning center, and certainly if anybody's interested, invite them to check our website, as we always have the updates there. But it is, to me, admittedly, you'll be hard pressed to find many positions that have as much of an impact in a child's life than a teacher, right?
Of course, yes.
And so I just feel that that is, if you're looking to make a difference, there's a good spot there for you.
Talk about the funding piece of this, and I did want to ask you about, and I'm kind of asking all my nonprofits, because I'm getting emails from Adam Bratton and the Nonprofit Partnership about the impact of the rollbacks at the federal level. The DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, the idea of Medicaid cuts. Some folks that were maybe a little bit higher up in income, losing that Medicaid subsidy and so on. What kinds of impacts have you seen on the population that you deal with here at St. Martin as far as the federal approach?
Well, you brought up the Medicaid. I think we'll be learning more about that soon. But I can just tell you in terms of the issue with where we've seen, you and I have a bit of sticker shock, I suspect, when we go to the I know I do.
I was just saying
at the grocery store, right?
$7 for potato chips.
But then imagine the clients, the families, the people that we serve that come to us that make less money than we do, that have more obstacles, that perhaps can't get to the grocery store unless they take the bus. These things are maximized, and so what we're seeing, what we've experienced is increased community need at the same time as there's been less funding and more uncertainty. And so double whammy, I guess, is the best way I could put it for you.
And this is even after the government shutdown and the state budget crisis. What was it like at your food pantry during all that?
Well, listen, it was so we were serving over 1,000 families. We had people at our door before we opened. We had people coming in after hours, and it was difficult to keep up. And so we've had to make adjustments because it's not just the volume of individuals coming, which of course need food. Who doesn't need food, right? But it's also the, what's the word I can give you? The angst, the desperation. It's palpable. All I have to do is get up from my desk and look out the window, and I see the lines, and it just breaks my heart. And so, we're trying to get food. And then when there's not enough food to be had, we have to go buy food, right? But it is difficult to understand, and I guess I'll leave it at that, how in this day and age, things like food and education and medical coverage are sort of held hostage by our political system. It's difficult to understand it.
It's difficult to understand.
And you know,
what about you guys? What about you? I mean, you have to keep the lights on. You have to pay your employees.
Well, you know, so
how
yeah,
tough is that these days?
without money, it's hard to have mission, right?
Right.
But you know, I'm excited to announce that we're having our annual appeal right now, so it's a good time to give, and it's always around this time, anyways, Christmas. But you know, I will tell you that I will choose this word, and you assign whatever meaning to you want to. But it's been an interesting first 6 months. We are on our fiscal year is July to June, so we're just basically starting the latter part of our year, and you know, money just started flowing a little while ago, right? And so
you were waiting on reimbursements.
well, sure, between the state and the federal, money was just not coming in.
How did you survive through all that?
Prayer, patience, resource allocation, and grace, and so, you know, it was very difficult, and so without getting into all the juicy details, we're coming out of it now. But you know, I think that it goes to what I shared earlier, right? Our clients are feeling it more, ergo we want to serve them more, and yet the funding is coming less or not coming at all. You put one is bad enough as it is, but then you add two together, makes it worse. And so we survived through the grace of God, and you know, I would argue that we're thriving, but we have to be creative, right, and patient, and you know, as I've said to staff, when we move towards a mission of more impact, we have to say no to some things and yes to others, right? If we want a better future for our clients and our organization, and we do, then it requires to do some things differently, not the same old, right? And so we're going to do the programs that we do in a way that's more impactful. You know, we have a good reputation for providing good work, compassionate work. Our funders like to work with us because we do the reports, we do what's necessary. But make no mistake, you know, we can always use more unrestricted support to help us bridge the gap, because most of what we do is reimbursement driven. And so if you go 3, 6, 9 months until you get paid, makes it a little challenging.
All right, I'm not an economist, but I want to walk through this. So the city of Erie and the county of Erie, our population is in decline. Mm-hmm. Would you say that counterintuitively that your demand is on increase, that the people knocking on your door, has it increased? Has it stayed the same, or has it followed the population decline?
No, the demand increases, but it's not. Yes, but it's not because the population per se is increasing. I think there are many factors, right? The cost of housing going up, the other economic factors that are impacting everybody. All those kinds of pieces obviously impact everybody's, you know, daily personal financial situation. But yeah, that the issue with our community losing individuals is one of the things that drives which is one of the reasons why I feel that the housing conversation needs to be shift to help get more homeowners in our region, right? To create more housing opportunities for folks to stay, build wealth, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And not just, you know, stopgap kind of.
Do you like what you're hearing? I mean, they've been in office for days, but we have a new leader at the county. We have a new leader at the city. These issues have all come up during the campaign of things of housing and affordability and homelessness and all the things. I mean, well, listen, what are you hearing? You know?
I to be honest, I'm too busy doing my work to
okay.
to pay attention to, you know. Right. I've been around a little bit, and
again, you have a political background. You were on city council.
I'm interested in results, right? And
sure.
So we are willing to. We want to work with folks that are committed to impact, and you know, and so I'm busy dealing with the clients that show up at our front door, and how to grow and develop people and help us all stay on mission. And our doors open for creative collaboration that can move us all toward impact.
All right, David, I'm going to ask you an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway.
I may or may not answer.
Okay, that's cool. On a continuum from despair to sustainability, compared to 2019, pre-COVID, as we sit here at the beginning of 2026, do you think that Erie's poor, I'm just going to put a broad stroke on that, are more in despair or more sustainable than they were pre-COVID? I know it's really unfair to ask, but I just want your expertise to weigh in on that.
Okay, so here I understand your broad question, and I understand why you need to ask broad questions, right? Just as when I ask my staff for certain numbers, I say I just need the big picture so I can make decisions. I guess what I would like to say, which is absolutely a non-answer for you, is that I think it, but it truly is a response. My experiences between serving clients and employing people, they're two different worlds that are very difficult to compare. What I mean by that is that the economy is different, right? Pre-COVID, in my experience, and certainly others could have, there weren't so many side hustles for folks to whatever, right? There were not that many non-traditional ways of work, and so it's different for folks. It's different now when we talk with clients, with families. It's just a different world. Hiring and retaining personnel is a different animal post COVID, and one that many of us, and I hear that across other sectors, not just nonprofit.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's really difficult. It's very different, but it's almost difficult to compare because it's. I mean, we obviously need to adapt, right? What other option is there?
Are poor people doing better or worse as a cohort?
Well, I mean, without looking at some numbers in front of me right now, my sense is that the cost of stuff is higher. The cost of housing is higher. Wow. Yeah. Interest rates are higher. So I would say, since you're looking for an answer, that from our perspective and our work with Erie's people in need, the circumstances are harder for folks to be more successful in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, like,
do I get a sticker?
Well, no, it's just that you're working hard. No one's going to accuse you of coasting, and there's a dozen other executive directors in this town, in this space, working hard, and yet our outcomes, because of external circumstances, but also internal circumstances, our outcomes are not where we want them to be.
Many variables, right?
Yeah.
And so that is one of the reasons why I say that we need to look at some of these community problems in a different way.
I agree.
Because and if it were easy, we would have done it already. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's more than just funding, right? It's we need to get out of this nonsense where we can't give nonprofits money to pay people. Well, how are we supposed to do our work if we can't? You know what I mean? Like, we need to change so many of the formulas that we currently put in place. And I would say, listen, I'll say this any day. If nonprofit organizations, obviously we have responsibility for meeting the outcomes and being, doing our work with integrity, no doubt. But if we were better resourced, we would even do better work.
Right.
It's a no-brainer.
If people want to support the work and the mission and the ministry of St. Martin Center, how do they?
Yeah, this is really God's work, right? The easiest way for them would be to check our website, a new website, new template, by the way, stmartincenter.org. St. Martin, that's in ST, martincenter.org. You can look at our programs there. You can see how to donate. You can look at our job ads. You can explore our partners, et cetera, et cetera. That's a good starting place. Of course, we're in most social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or give us a call, right? We're happy to talk to you.
David Gonzalez, Executive Director, St. Martin Center, doing the work at the street level, at the level of where real Erieites are living. And I think it's important to hear your voice. I appreciate you doing so.
Thanks.
We have more ahead here. It's 5 until 5 o'clock. Talk Erie.